Good morning. Today's class is about examination of a case of salivary gland swelling. As you know, salivary glands are, there are various types of salivary glands. The paired salivary glands are there, which are the parotid, submandibular and sublingual glands. And there are numerous minor salivary glands. The number varies from 400 to 900. That's it, the varies. Right. So today, we will mainly discuss concentrating on the two major sets of salivary glands, that is parotid and submandibular salivary glands. Okay. Why it's called parotid? Because it's parotid, near the ear. That's why it's called the parotid. That's the ear. Swelling is near the ear. The gland is situated near the ear. First, we concentrate on a case of parotid swelling. We take the history. We ask, like another, we start the history. We ask the name and other things and all. Then we come into the history proper. The most common complaint will be swelling. Swelling situated in the side of the face or just near the ear. So you ask, how did it start? It's very important. How did it start? Okay. Did it start with pain? If it started with pain, it could be an inflammatory swelling. Or is there any? How is it progressive? If it's not, usually the complaint will be a chronic, long-standing swelling. Patient is not otherwise having any complaints about that. How is it progressing? The most common swelling, the parotid swellings are called 80% swelling. You know, salivary gland swelling. 80% of salivary gland swellings occur in parotid. Out of this, 80% of them are benign. Out of the benign 80% of them are pleomorphic adenoma. So that means almost 80% of the swellings occurring in parotid region is benign, and most of them are pleomorphic adenoma. If you leave aside the benign, the inflammatory group like the mastitis and abscess, most of the swelling present in parotid region are benign swellings, and most of them are pleomorphic adenoma. So the history you get is that a swelling is there for many years, slowly progressing. The patient is not having any other problem, no pain, no other discomfort, no facial palsy, nothing. So how is it, when will you suspect a malignancy in a parotid swelling? A rapid progression, the patient will tell you this is there for many years. In the recent few weeks, there's a rapid increase in size. Or the change in the consistency. Usually, one thing here you should remember is parotid swelling, so patient will tell you, when touching it, it's not a soft swelling. It will be firm to hard because you know what is pleomorphic adenoma. It may contain all the elements, endodermal, ectodermal, and mesodermal elements. So the consistency may be hard even in a benign pleomorphic adenoma. So patient will tell you it's hard swelling, which is there for many years, maybe progressing slowly. That's okay, it's benign. If it's progressing rapidly, you need to consider a suspicion of malignancy. Okay. Is it unilateral or bilateral? Some conditions in parotid can be bilateral, like a Mikulicz syndrome, and or can be bilateral. And rarely a condition called, or also a condition called a Warthin's tumor, which may be presenting in the lower part of the parotid gland, can present as a bilateral swelling also. Next, so after the swelling, you ask, is this painful? Most of the, as I mentioned, most of the parotid swellings are painless, benign tumors. But in inflammatory conditions and abscess, it could be a little pain associated with that, the throbbing type of pain. A chronic swelling which is present for many years, many months or years, and suddenly in the recent few months, few weeks or so, starting to get pain. Again, that again should raise a suspicion of a development of malignancy in a benign swelling. So later sort of pain is also important. Any discharge, that's a third common condition. Problem. You get any inflammatory condition can produce fistulation of the skin, sometimes a fistula, any drainage from the skin, or more importantly, a discharge through the oral cavity at the site of the salivary, the parotid duct, which is opening at the opposite the crown of the upper second molar in the buccal mucosa. So any discharge, patient may tell you on pressing or even on eating or chewing, some discharge is coming. So you ask about the history of the type of discharge. Is it just saliva coming, or any foul smelling pus coming, or any blood-stained discharge coming? Pus may be due to infection, and blood-stained discharge may be a malignancy associated. Okay. So ask about any discharge also. So if you see, if it is due to, if you're somewhat sure it is due to the parotid swelling, you ask about the signs of malignancy again. The presence of other swellings, symptoms of malignancy, the presence of other swellings, which indicates maybe presence of lymph nodes in the neck, submandibular region, upper this level 2 and 3 lymph nodes may be enlarged in submandibular lymph node malignancy. So ask about any other swellings developing in the neck. Other set of questions you should ask about any facial nerve involvement. You know, facial nerve is sandwiched between the two parts of the parotid gland, the superficial part and deep part. Okay, so any infiltration of the nerve due to malignancy can have unilateral facial nerve palsy. So you ask about any inability to close the eye on the same side, deviation of the angle of mouth to the opposite side, drooling of saliva, some questions like that, which indicates an infiltration or involvement of the facial nerve. Okay. So these are the questions you ask about parotid. So you rule out it is inflammatory, maybe it is benign neoplastic, maybe a malignant neoplasm, with or without inflammation, with or without secondary swellings in the neck. Okay. Coming to examination, you inspect and palpate. Both I'm not going to the details of inspection and palpate. Together I will describe today what are the salient findings. On inspection and palpate, what is the most striking is that swelling is present in the parotid region. What do you mean by parotid region? This is a very only pictorial representation. This is the submandibular. This is the what do you call this? Zygomatic arch. This is the mastoid process. This is the angle of mandible. This is the masseter. So basically, it's an inverted pyramid-shaped swelling. It's fixed into the site. So any swelling present in this region, you can say a swelling is inspected or palpated in the parotid region. That's the first thing. Okay, and it can obliterate the retroauricular area. This may be obliterated, and if it's situated in lower part here, you can raise the ear lobule because it is situated in this region. This ear lobule will be obliterated and elevated to a higher level. Okay. So when the swelling is there, site is described like this. Then any swelling is described like size, shape, position, and all those things. It's like in any other swelling, you describe it. Okay. So specific examination of the parotid is that you palpate the consistency. It will be firm, maybe uniformly firm. Sometimes it will be some area will be hard and some area soft, as in pleomorphic adenoma we described. So variegated in consistency. Okay. What are the specific points to say it is parotid? One is the site. It will be in the parotid region. Second, the relation with the deep fascia. As you know, the investing layer of deep fascia, once it reaches here, it splits and closes the submandibular salivary gland as well as the parotid gland. And it is attached to the superficial lamina, the anterior lamina is attached to the zygomatic bone. Okay. So it will be deep to the deep fascia. How will you check the deep fascia? You ask the patient to open and stretch the deep fascia and then check the mobility and the prominence of the swelling. As you know, if the swelling is deep to deep fascia, the swellings will become less prominent and the mobility will be restricted also. So it will be deep to the deep fascia. Then you ask the patient to contract the masseter muscle. What is the relation with the swelling and masseter? The parotid and masseter. Parotid is superficial to the masseter muscle. So on clenching the teeth, this swelling will become more prominent. That means it's superficial to the masseter. Okay. So the site, and also if there is any swelling situated here, any raising of the ear lobule and obliteration of the retroauricular region on the surface, these are also partly indicative of the parotid. So how will you say it's a parotid? In the parotid region, first of all there will be symptoms regarding parotid and discharge and all those things. If it is there, it will suggest you of parotid. Swelling present in parotid region, deep to the deep fascia, superficial to the masseter. In addition to that, if there is involvement of facial nerve, other things, or lymph node presence, all these will be additional points to say it could be a parotid swelling. Now look at the skin over the swelling. Usually in a benign paraparotid swelling, the skin will be nodular or normal. There will be no ulceration, no scar or anything. But if it is red edematous and looking like an inflammation, it could be an inflammatory swelling also. Any sinus or anything on the skin also should be known. Now, duct. You need to see the parotid duct. Okay. Where is the parotid duct? Parotid duct is from the parotid, it pierces the masseter muscle and goes into the oral cavity. As I mentioned before, it opens at opposite the second upper molar tooth, the crown of the upper second molar. You can palpate the parotid duct also. Within the one hand in the mouth and one other hand over, you can roll it over, or you can palpate, roll it over. You can palpate the duct opening also. So look at the parotid duct opening for any ulceration, discharge, any stone protruding, any masses or ulcerating mass there. Okay, it could be there also. Now, after this, you have finished the examination of the parotid as such. You examine the parotid as a swelling. Few other things need to be examined. Look for any lymph nodes. The common groups of lymph node involved are the submandibular, the level 2, 3, level 1, 2, 3 nodes. You palpate carefully for any presence of any lymph nodes. Then, carefully palpate, look for the facial nerve involvement of the same side. Okay? Of closing of the eye, the puffing sign, closing of the eye, and any involvement or deviation of the angle of mouth, the opposite side, or the wrinkles on the forehead. Depending on which branch of facial nerve involved, you can have sometimes all these signs, sometimes only the part of the signs which according to the part of the nerve involved. So, lymph nodes, second is the facial nerve, third is the examination of oral cavity, which is important. Why you examine the oral cavity? One we already mentioned about the duct opening side. Second, you look for any other ulcerated lesion anywhere in the mouth, because though this parotid area contains a lot of lymph nodes. So though it is not part of the drainage area, but still you have to look for any other lesion in the oral cavity. Second. Third, the deep lobe. Where will be the presence of the deep lobe? Deep lobe will be presenting at the area of the tonsillar fossa. Okay, any bulge or deviation of the pushing of the tonsils to the medial side indicative of the presence of a swelling in the deep fascia, deep lobe of the parotid. So that is indicated. You can also do a bidigital examination. The books describe one hand outside, one hand in the tonsillar area, push between these two fingers. But mind you, this is not a very easy test to do, because you keep the hand finger inside the mouth, the tonsillar region, patient will have a lot of gag reflex. So it is not easy to do. You should be very careful in doing this. Okay. So you do that, and also look for any parapharyngeal swelling, which is a type of deep swelling which may extend into the parapharyngeal fossa. Okay, not only in the deep lobe here, it can extend as a parapharyngeal fossa, which may be difficult to see on the oral cavity. But if you suspect, you may have to get a detailed ENT examination. Okay. Now, this is the examination. So, how will you suspect a malignancy? Suppose the swelling is there with all these features. When you suppose the examiner asks you, do you think it's malignant? How will you say it could be malignant according to history and examination? One, there may be a history, long-standing history and recent rapid increase in size. Recent change in the consistency. Sometimes patient will say before it was somewhat okay, now it's becoming very hard. Change in the mobility, patient may tell you, because if it's infiltrating into the underlying muscle or structures or skin, patient will tell you, okay, now when I touch it's not moving that much. Then, any pain, recent onset pain, again, you have to suspect, though it's not a 100% confirmatory test, it is not, can doubt malignancy. Recent change in the skin consistency, fixity to skin, ulceration, change in the mobility, which we already mentioned. Then on examination, it could be a hard, fixed swelling, fixed to the skin, fixed to the underlying muscles, and sometimes to the mandible also. Suspecting presence of lymph nodes in the neck, already mentioned, presence of infiltration of facial nerve. All these things, partly or together, can give you a suspicion of a malignant swelling. Otherwise, you can say possibly benign. Not, mind you, all malignant swellings may have all this. Sometimes malignant swellings may not have any of these findings. Still, it could be malignant. Okay. Even hard consistency swellings can be benign also. So there is a lot of variations in the findings. According to that, you have to adjust your final diagnosis. Okay. So that's how you say a parotid swelling. Or don't forget to mention examine the opposite side. You can have bilateral swellings, as I mentioned before. So you have to examine the opposite side. After examination of parotid, you should get lymph nodes, facial nerve, opposite side, oral cavity, and suggestive symptoms about signs about malignancy. Okay. So that's how you examine a case of parotid swelling. But differential diagnosis also should be including the parotid group of lymph nodes which are present inside the parotid fascia. So to say that sometimes all these features may be there with the parotid lymph node also. So the primary site of the lymph node also should be examined. What are the drainage areas to this parotid group of nodes? Which include the skull, scalp, face, the back of the area, ear, external auditory canal. So you keep it in your mind. Whenever you get a swelling there, always keep a differential diagnosis of a parotid group of lymph nodes. Don't forget to examine the primary drainage area of the lymph nodes also. Now coming to the next group of salivary glands, is submandibular. As you know, it's the submandibular triangle which is bound by the two bellies of the digastric and the body of the ramus or the mandible. It is the submandibular region. The history will be a swelling there, present in this region. And usually the inflammation is, the patient may give you history of on eating or chewing, the swelling increases in size if there is a blockage in the duct. The stone disease is much more common in submandibular salivary glands because of the dependent position of the gland and anti-gravity drainage of the ducts, and also the more mucodischarge in the parotid submandibular gland. So any block in the ducts are called the Wharton's duct, opens on either side of the frenulum. So any block there, on eating or chewing or salivation, swelling becomes more and pain increases. So that's the history you get. Then any pain, throbbing pain, all this suggestive of inflammation. And also, patient may give a history of swelling, which is otherwise asymptomatic, enlarging in size, suggestive of a neoplastic swelling. Parotid, as I told you, 20% of them only will be malignant, 10 to 20%. But in submandibular, maybe 50 to 60% of them could be malignant. So more chance of malignancy. When you get a swelling there in submandibular region, if it doesn't look like inflammatory, you need to be, it is more likely to be a malignant swelling than benign. Okay. So skin of the swelling will be edematous and all this red inflammation. In malignancy it could be okay if it is infiltrated sometimes it may be infiltrated. See the duct region. Where will you look for the duct? On either side of the frenulum, you see the duct. Normally there will be, you can carefully see if saliva may be coming out, but there may be an ulcerated lesion, protruding, what you call the stone may be protruding out, or maybe blood or pus may be coming out in case of malignancy and inflammation. What are the pathological things you do? Sorry, palpation. How will you palpate what are the peculiar things about the palpation of the salivary, submandibular salivary gland? Site will be there in the submandibular region, as we mentioned. The most common swelling in submandibular region is the lymph node, not the salivary gland. How to differentiate it from submandibular lymph nodes from salivary glands? Site will be, both will be in submandibular triangle. In case of submandibular salivary gland, the consistency will be more or less a uniform consistency. Surface will be more or less firm and smooth in consistency, maybe slightly nodular, but the salivary gland could be a group of nodes. Multiple nodes can be palpated. And this one test called the anatomy of the submandibular salivary. This is the mylohyoid muscle. This is the submandibular salivary gland. This is the superficial part. This is the deep part. Okay. So when you keep one hand outside, one hand inside, medial to the alveolus inside, and you can palpate this gland, submandibular salivary gland, between these two examining figures. This is called bidigital examination. That is because one part of the submandibular gland extending deep to the mylohyoid muscle. Whereas in lymph nodes, all the lymph nodes are superficial to the mylohyoid muscle. So if you keep one hand inside and palpate, submandibular salivary gland only will be bidigitally palpable. Lymph nodes will not be bidigitally palpable. That's one more test. So one is the consistency and the softness. Second is bidigital palpability. Third, submandibular lymph nodes are here. Sometimes if it's not fixed, you can roll the lymph node over to the anterior angle of the mandible or over to the mandible because it's superficial to the mandible. You can roll it over. Sometimes, not always. But submandibular salivary gland, you will be never be able to roll over onto the mandible. So these are some of the clinical methods by which you distinguish between submandibular salivary gland and a lymph node. Okay. So bidigital palpation you should do, and all this. Now, what are the other tests you do? So you always see the opposite side, always see other salivary glands also. Maybe multiple salivary glands can be enlarged in various syndromes, you know that. So see the other test. Lymph nodes should be palpated. The lymph nodes in submandibular salivary gland maybe level 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5, level 5 node may be enlarged. So examine and all lymph nodes in the neck. Depth should be palpated in the oral cavity on either side of the frenulum. On the affected side, carefully palpate for any lesion there, any protruding stone palpable. All these things you should palpate. Then, what are the nerves which are associated with the submandibular salivary gland? There are two superficial group of nerves. There are two nerves like superficial nerves like the facial nerve branch like the marginal mandibular and cervical branch. This usually is not involved in this gland, only when during the surgery you may injure it. There are two deep branches that nerves involved, that is the lingual nerve and hypoglossal nerve. You should see when a swelling is more situated with hard swelling fixed there, you should always see involvement of the lingual nerve by checking the taste, sensation and angular two-thirds of the tongue. And hypoglossal nerve by asking the patient to put out the tongue. The tongue will be deviated towards the side of the lesion and there will be hypertrophy of the side of the tongue on the side of the involvement of the hypoglossal nerve. So hypoglossal nerve and lingual nerve should be checked. Then lymph nodes should be checked. And any other metastatic signs, any other distant metastasis like lung or bone also metastasis should be checked for. Okay. So that is how you examine the submandibular salivary gland. You should know the size, how you differentiate between lymph node and the submandibular gland. Is there any symptoms or signs of malignancy? And what are the examinations you do in a case of submandibular salivary gland? And how you suspect malignancy? Because more than 50 to 60% of the cases are malignant in submandibular salivary gland. So it is important to see investigation for the investigation. I am not going to discuss now. So after examination, you should be able to say is this a submandibular salivary gland or a lymph node and possible pathology. Okay, I also involvement of other salivary glands. Okay. Hope it was clear for you to examine in the examination of salivary glands, swelling of salivary gland. And with these basic steps, you should be able to enumerate and come to a possible diagnosis of a salivary gland. Okay, thank you.